obsession over the outputs instead of visibility and clarity over the inputs that corrupts our ability to produce the ideal outputs. We are back, baby, with chapter 2 of the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Lord's Song, Celestial Song. That is not, by the way, it's the world's most famous poem. And if you want the intro to this series, check out yesterday's episode for chapter 1. But I will say, a side note, we're used to things being like the Lord's Song, the Song of the Lord. It's in the West, a song for the Lord. This, as is seen by those in the East, students of Vedanta, is not that this is a song from humans to the Lord. This is seen as the Lord's song to us. It's a poem, so it's not sung, but when this was composed 2,500 years ago, and still is today when recited in Sanskrit, it is chanted. So it is kind of like a song from that regard. But the only music I hear when I start thinking about the Gita, especially chapter 2, is this. Especially 11 lines in, when the charioteer himself starts to speak, and the famous, feared warrior prince is just completely, well, he's folded like a lawn chair, like I said yesterday. Completely broken down, scared about this massive battle that's about to take place, that he was so amped on, so ready for hours before, and then he started to see the opposition line up, and he was like, holy shit. That's a whole lot bigger than I thought the opposition was going to be. Starts to fear his death. This chapter 2, called the Yoga of Knowledge, it is in many ways the most powerful chapter in the whole Gita, the whole 700-verse poem. It is the overview of everything that the rest of the poem is going to cover. The rest of the verses, the rest of the chapters. It's basically like, as they say in public speaking, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. This chapter, and when Krishna starts to speak in verse 11, he lays it all out. He says, this is just the way things are. This is the description of the universe, the description of you, description of your eternal aspect of your soul. There is nothing to fear. Nothing can happen to you. And why you should actually pick your bow up and fight this battle. And it's amazing. That's why it's probably my favorite chapter, because it's the whole Gita in one chapter. But Arjuna, like all of us, you can't just hear something once and boom, you grok it. It's digested. You've got it understood. You have to hear it over and over again. In fact, there's a line about the Gita that there's no such thing as having read the Gita. You are either reading it or you are not. And that line is from a teacher online, Sarvapriyananda, that I think he's quoting it from another Swami he heard. I think about that all the time. You are either reading it or you are not. There is no having read the Gita because, well, as we see in the text itself, Chapter 2 goes completely over Arjuna's head. The theme of Chapter 2 is detachment from the fruits of our actions. It's the yoga of knowledge, but in this yoga meaning union. In this union through knowledge, it's these knowledge bombs that shift our action, that shift what we do, why we do it, what we choose, what we don't choose. And perhaps the key verse of Chapter 2 is verse 47. 47, which we'll touch on here in a second, hits this right on the head. And in many ways, you could sum up the entirety of the Gita with two main lessons. You are not the actor. and the fruits of your actions are not yours. The second one that is part of the theme of chapter 2. This knowledge that Krishna is imparting to Arjuna, the warrior prince, and he says it most succinctly with verse 47, where he says, "Your right is in action only, never to the fruits. Let not the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction." This is Swamiji's translation of the Gita, which I'll try to link in the show notes. But if you go look up Vedanta Treatise, his most famous book, I'm sure you'll be able to find his translation of the Bhagavad Gita as well. And I'm going to read this one more time. Your right is in action only, never to the fruits. Let not the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. And there are two things going on in this one verse, in this one sentence. First, is that we should not be attached to comfort, inaction, kicking our heels up, pursuing inaction. This is relevant to pretty much all of our lives because in many ways, we think that is the goal of action. We think the goal of action is to work our asses off so that we don't have to work so hard, that we can get to a place of retirement, kick our heels up at the beach, do nothing. But work itself, even in the book of Genesis, work was a part of paradise before the fall of man, as a part of paradise. Aristotle said it well when he said, happiness is a being at work in accordance with virtue. In this verse, the lesser discussed aspect of this verse is, don't let your attachment be to inaction. Pursuing actions so that you can indulge in inaction. That's not how we're made. There isn't a single aspect of our biology, of our makeup, of our spirit, of our sense of fulfillment that comes from doing nothing. And you don't have to take any philosophical words for it. Just try to do nothing for a few weeks. Try to lay on the couch for 3 days straight and see if that generates energy within you, or if it continually dissipates energy within you. The more often discussed aspect of 47 is your right is in action only, not to the fruits of your action. You have a right to action. It's yours. You're made. We are made. I am made for action. But the attachment to the fruits of our action, obsession over the results, which we did an episode recently on how to avoid stupidity from the brilliant mind of Adam Robinson, where he talks through the key aspects that cause us to be stupid. And he defines stupidity because most of us think being stupid is a lack of intelligence, but a stupid act, which we all make. He defines a stupid act as overlooking or dismissing conspicuously crucial information. So in the midst of conspicuous crucial information, it's right there, not hidden crucial information. That is maybe a mistake, but that's not stupid. Stupid is, oh my God, that was right in front of me. I knew that, and I still made the wrong choice. And one of the key elements is an obsession over the result that blinds us from crucial information. Additionally, the obsession over the result instead of an obsession over the process. Obsession over the outputs instead of visibility and clarity over the inputs. That corrupts our ability to produce the ideal outputs. According to this philosophy, it is the corruption of our acts themselves when we obsess, are attached to outcomes. Not only does it corrupt our action, but it corrupts ourselves where we only choose actions because of the fruits that it will net us. But the fruits, just like the trees that bear them, are not for the tree that grows the fruit. Fruit is for our community. The fruit is for those around us. And it is through a selfless pursuit of action, A selfless pursuit of action, not a selfish pursuit of action. A selfless pursuit of action that actually creates the most fruit. And every community, every ecology benefits when you're producing more instead of less fruit. You yourself benefit when you produce more fruit. You're more valued. Just like any tree, you're more valued by your community. Your sense of belonging grows. Your sense of self-worth grows. Ironically, paradoxically, your sense of self-worth, fulfillment, satisfaction, belonging, it all grows the less that you're thinking about yourself. And this is one part philosophy, is one part logic, or perhaps your experience. The more you think about yourself, the more you act out of self-interest, what does that do to the relationships around you? Does that cause them to grow, or does it cause them to actually weaken, break? Think of your most selfish friend. 1, are they happy? 2, do they have a whole lot of other friends? Is that community around them growing or shrinking? In this overview of chapter 2, this is perhaps the most quoted verse within it, because it is at the heart of what Krishna, what the Gita, what this philosophy is telling us. The fruits of our actions are not ours. And the very attachment to them corrupts our action. It corrupts our sense of self-worth. It corrupts our energy. And secondly, be not attached to inaction. Do not pursue action just for the sake to get on the other side of action. In a very stark sense, Swamiji will say pretty often, life is to strive and to struggle, not to succeed. But what is so fascinating and weird about that is the more we cultivate a love of striving and struggling, the more satisfaction that we get out of action itself, out of the process, the less we care about the products. The less we care about the products, the more satisfaction we get in the process. And that enjoyment from the process, enjoyment from the action, that is our right. That is what we're built to do. Your right is in action only, never to the fruits. Let not the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. That is our brief reflection on chapter 2 of the Gita, and tomorrow we will tackle chapter 3. We'll see you then.